Hello everyone, it's Miss Thomas, and today we are going to look at writing equations of lines. So our objective is to write equations of lines from graphs, points, intercepts, and from real-life situations as well. So to write equations of line, our first step is always to find the slope. We can't do anything linearly unless we know what the slope is. So we want to be able to find the slope first. The second step is use y equals mx plus b, substituting x and y and m into the equation to solve for b. The third step is to write the equation in slope-intercept form. And if you're asked to write the equation in standard form, you want to rearrange from slope-intercept form, and that should say from and not form. So our first example, we're going to write the equation of the line through point -8, 6 with a slope of 1/3. So like I said, first thing you want to do is find the slope. Thankfully in this equation, or in this example, our slope is given to us. So we can go right ahead into slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. We're going to plug in what we know, keeping in mind that this is an x and this is a y. So if my y is 6, I'm going to put it here. My m is my slope. It's 1/3. My x is -8 plus b. Okay. So it's going to be 6 equals 1/3 times 8. Just make it a -8/3. You can change it to a decimal, but it's not going to be as precise, okay? Because it's divided by 3, so that's going to be a continuing decimal. If it's going to be a continuing decimal, leave it as a fraction. So now we want to solve for b, which means we're trying to isolate b. Here's my equal sign. I want to get b by itself, so all I really need to do is add the 8/3 to both sides. I'm adding because it's negative, so we'll cancel it out. So 6 plus 8/3, I'm going to sort of show the work for that over here. 6 over 1 plus 8 over 8. So we need a common denominator here. The common denominator is going to be 3. So I can multiply numerator and denominator here by 3 over 3. 3 times 6 is 18 over 3 plus 8 over 3. So b is going to equal, remember when you're adding fractions, you just add numerators. 18 plus 8 is going to be 26 over 3. And like I said earlier in the course, really, please, feel free to leave it as an improper fraction. We don't need to change it to a decimal, and we don't need to change it to a mixed number. So we've got our b. So now I want to plug that in to y equals mx plus b, so I have a general equation of the line. So I'm going to leave my y a y. M is 1/3. That was given to us. X stays x, and now I know my b is 26/3. So I could go ahead and graph that if I wanted to. Alright, so now we're going to write another equation of a line. This is our second example through points -2, 0, and 0.13. So the first thing I want to do is find my slope. My slope is not given to me, so I'm going to go ahead and use the slope formula, y minus y over x minus x, keeping in mind that corresponding x's and y's need to be on top of each other. So this is x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay? So y's always go on top. In this case, I'm going to take 3 minus 0. I'm going to take my y2 minus my y1, just because 3 minus 0 is a lot easier than 0 minus 3. So since my y2 went first, my x2 needs to go first. 1 minus, now be careful here because it's minus -2. And we know that minus a negative right away turns into plus a positive. So we don't want to waste any time switching that over. So it ends up being 3 over 3, which ends up being just a positive 1. So my slope is 1. So that's just step 1. Now I want to go and write the equation, plug it in, using y equals mx plus b. So I only need to use one of these points. I can use -2, 0, or I can use 1, 3. It doesn't matter which point you use. I'm going to go ahead and use -2, 0. So my y in this is a 0, my m is a 1, and my x is -2. And then I don't know what my b is. That's what I'm trying to solve for. So 0 is going to equal -2 plus b. So then I want to add 2 to both sides to get b by itself. So 0 plus 2 is 2, so b is going to equal 2. So then the third step is take those important parts, the fact that my slope is 1 and my b is a 2, plug it into y equals mx plus b. So we want to leave our y as a y, m is a 1, and our b is a 2. So this is equivalent to y equals x plus 2. Okay, I'm going to go back and double check my question just to make sure I answered it completely. And I did. Write the equation of the line. I wrote the equation of the line, so this is my answer. This one asks, write the equation of the line in standard form. So this one's a little bit different because it's asking us to write, not just write it, but to write it in standard form. So as I said, we always want to start with our slope-intercept form. So here are my points, x, y, here is my slope. Step 1 is complete, so step 2 is just go ahead and plug that stuff into y equals mx plus b. So my y is a -5, my slope is a -2, my x is a 2, plus b. So -5 equals -4 plus b. So I'm going to go ahead and add 4 to both sides because I'm trying to isolate the b. -5 plus 4 is a -1. -4 plus 4 cancels, so b is equal to a -1. So then I'm going to go ahead and take my slope and my y-intercept, write it into y equals mx plus b. So y equals, my slope is a -2, plus my b is a -1. Okay? So the problem here, we're not quite done because they asked us to write it in standard form. So remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c. So we want to go ahead and get x and y on the same side of the equal sign. So currently, I need to get x over. To move a -2x over, I'm going to add 2x to both sides. Remember, to move an entire term from one side to the other, we want to add and subtract. So 2x and y are not like terms, so it's just going to be 2x plus y, because the y is positive. These x's cancel, and I'm left with a -1. And everything checks out. I've got all integers, my leading coefficient is positive, so 2x plus y equals -1 is my answer. Alright, write the equation of the line. A mountain climber leaves his camp and hikes up the side of a mountain. His altitude increases at an average rate of 200 feet per hour. After 3 hours, his altitude is 4,100 feet. Write an equation to find his altitude y after he has been hiking for x hours. So all of you guys are really good at underlining stuff. Oh good, 200 feet per hour, 3 hours, this. we've got to get good at making lists of stuff as well. Okay, so we know his altitude has an average rate. Rate is a very important word. Rate means slope. Remember, rate of change is the same as slope, which is your m. So 200 is my slope. So already I've got step 1 done. Then it tells me after 3 hours his altitude is 4,100 feet. Those things seem to go together. So we want to make a coordinate out of it. 3 hours, 4,100 feet. So we want to just go right ahead and plug that into y equals mx plus b. So in this case, this is my x, this is my y. So when I'm at 4,100 feet, 3 hours has passed. Okay. So 4,100 is equal to 600 plus b. So we want to isolate the b. 600 is with b. It's a positive 600, so this time I'm going to subtract 600. So it's the opposite sign. 4,100 minus 600 is 3,500. So b equals 3,500. So my equation is going to be y equals 200x plus 3,500. So if you think about this graphically, I want to look at this a little bit deeper. So if I think about this graphically, 35. So let's say this is 3,500. 3,500 is my b. For every change in 1 hour, I go up 200. So a lot of times with word problems, we only use the first quadrant. 3,500 is going to be his initial elevation. Okay, so it's the starting elevation, and then it only increases from here. If this is my time, right, 200, I can't have negative time. I'm not going to have negative elevation. So this is an example of a graph that's just going to start here on the y-axis and increase forever. Just to keep in mind, we're going to be doing some interpreting of these lines. All right, so it's the u-try. Go ahead and write the equation of the line. That has a slope of -5 and an x-intercept of 22. If the x-intercept of 22 is 22, remember that means that the point for it is 22, 0. Great, and I will see you in class.